Hello, you're watching Transbrations. I'm nahshondion. This month, we're celebrating Women's History Month. Today's special guest is Tunisia Offray. She's a Renaissance woman and boss lady and is the co-founder at Shepherd's Door Domestic Violence Resource Center, servicing victims and survivors of domestic violence in the Los Angeles County area for more than 17 years. Shepherd's Door mission is to break the cycle of domestic violence through relationship education, financial literacy, youth violence prevention education, support groups, and direct rescue intervention. Shepherd's Door has created a haven for domestic violence survivors and a network to encourage women helping women reach and succeed in their potential and maintain a lifestyle balance. In 2009, Tunisia founded Women Wealth Warriors. The platform was created to support women entrepreneurs and women in business. Tunisia is also the owner of Prestige Insurance and Financial Services and an executive producer and the mother of four. Tunisia, welcome. Thank you for joining me. How are you doing today?
I am wonderful, and I'm so excited to be here with you today. I don't get excited for a lot of interviews, but I was very excited for this one for so many reasons.
Tell us about your family's history in Louisiana.
I'm from New Orleans, Louisiana. My mother and father both born and raised in New Orleans. I have a really big family. Grandparents been married over 50 years. Rest in peace. They're both deceased now. About 8 aunts and uncles just on my mom's side and 8 on my dad's side. So I have a host of cousins. So we were very, very, very close family. I didn't have a lot of friends because I didn't need to. I had cousins and we were all around the same age, went to school together, grew up together. So my time there was happy. And I often reflect back because I do think that was one of the most happiest times of my life when I was living in New Orleans and with my family. So yeah, unfortunately, we moved to California. Well, I wouldn't say unfortunately, but we did move to California. So when you're that young, we moved here when I was 9. And it was rather abrupt for me. I didn't really understand why we had to move. Mm-hmm. My parents owned a business in New Orleans and the business wasn't doing so well. They wanted a fresh start. So they decided to sell the house and just the business and relocate to beautiful Pasadena, California. And that's where I ended up settling at in the 80s.
And your grandparents did not come with you?
No, all of our family stayed in New Orleans. My grandma, my grandpa, aunts and uncles. So it was just me and my immediate family for the most part that were here. We did have other distant relatives that I did not know, cousins of my parents and things of that nature, but they were not the family that I grew up around and the family that I knew. Mm-hmm. So essentially it was just me and my immediate family, mother, father, and siblings that moved here.
And what year did you guys get to Pasadena?
Oh God, I think it was 86.
It was 86. And did they know people in the community, or was this a whole new fresh start?
No, so my grandfather's sister lived in Pasadena. So when we moved here, we essentially moved in with them until, my parents was able to find us a home and get us settled. So, but I didn't know that family at all. So in my eyes as a 9-year-old girl, we moved in with strangers. That's how I saw it, because that was the family that I knew. Yeah.
What elementary school did you go to?
I went to San Rafael, and then from San Rafael Middle School, I ended up going to Wilson, and then John Muir.
What part of Pasadena, what area did you live in?
Altadena.
What part of Altadena?
All the way up on Altadena, Poppy Fields, in a nice little cul-de-sac with a 10-foot pool in the backyard. Yeah, I remember that house.
My first house was on Altadena Drive.
Oh.
And then it was right on Altadena and Lincoln. And then it was on Palm Street, by Palm Street and Olive. It was pretty much based around Loma Alta Park, where I grew up at.
Gotcha. Yes.
Because my third home was up in the Meadows, the Altadena Meadows.
Yes.
So, but Poppy Field sounds familiar. Where was Poppy Field near?
You go up Lake. So it was like a cul-de-sac. So it's you would never go on that street unless you was going on that street, because it was like a little private cul-de-sac. So I guess you would say the cross street, Lake, it is north of Altadena Drive. It's up there.
So somewhere near Farnsworth Park.
Close to Farnsworth Park. There you go. Yep, bam.
I got the general area. Okay. We're obviously this is, hate to say it, this is 30 something years later. We graduated in 1996.
That's crazy. Yes, that is so crazy.
Do you still go to
I thought I'd never see him again.
You were saying that and what made you think you would never see me again?
Well, because a lot of people's lives, you kind of separate from people, right? Everybody kind of goes in their own direction. Mm-hmm. I didn't live in Pasadena for so many years, so I didn't cross paths with people. And to be honest, I disconnected myself, and we'll get into that later, a lot of that part of my life. So,
Mhm.
and you're just someone who I never saw pop up anywhere. So it's like, oh, I just, you see these pictures and you remember these memories, but then you think, oh, I'll probably never see this person again. So
Mhm.
it's crazy when we crossed paths again. I was like, wow.
I was gone. I was gone with the wind. I was so happy to get away from Pasadena, Altadena. I mean, Altadena is beautiful. I love
It is.
Altadena. Pasadena, I was raised in both parts, and I would say equally, family, Altadena, Pasadena. But
Mhm.
Altadena is just so beautiful to me. A lot of good memories up there. But I was still happy to get away and just start my life. And yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Funny, same here. Like when I graduated, I mean, of course, I didn't leave right away, but in my early 20s, I think I was like 22 maybe.
Mhm.
I was out of here. I was like, I want to be in LA where it's popping.
Right,
I want
right.
to just run away from all of my trauma from Pasadena and start my life over. So, like, I lived in the heart of Los Angeles where it was popping and dropping. Yeah. So, I
Uh-huh.
was there
Mhm.
for a long time. I did not want to be back here, but I always say life is really funny because you can run, right, but you can't hide. Like, it brought me right back here to Pasadena to heal. So now I have a different love for the
Mhm.
city that I feel like I never had, and I appreciate it so much more now than I ever have. So yeah.
And that you were trying to run away from.
Yes, exactly.
So
So,
how did you end up back in Pasadena? What brought you back to Pasadena?
oh Lord Jesus. Okay, what brought me back to Pasadena? I was running, running and hiding. No, I went through a really bad abusive relationship with my youngest child's father, and it was too much. And I needed to separate. I needed space, right, from
Mhm.
him and I. And he's in Los Angeles, and I was like, I need to be as far away from there as possible. And so it kind of made me come back home, essentially.
Oh.
And it's crazy how the timing worked because I had opened up an office here in my insurance business. My mom had called and said, hey, there's office space in the same building as Shepherd's Door. And I'm like, really? And she was like, I think you should get it. And I'm like, I'm in a heat of a custody battle. You want me to open up an office like and
Mhm.
move? But I don't know, something in my spirit spoke and said, like, you should do it.
Mhm.
And I threw caution to the wind. I packed up me and my kids' stuff. I left at a house, found a new place here, opened up the office in the middle of chaos, and
Mhm.
just planted myself here. And I'm so happy that I did because that was, I think, one of the best decisions, not just because of what I was going through, but I didn't realize at the time that there was a lot of healing that needed to be done. And I also didn't realize that I was running from my trauma by not wanting to be here. So being here forced me to address a lot of things that I didn't even realize needed to be addressed with myself and
Mhm.
my spirit. So I really say, like, coming here saved me, and it gave me a different meaning to life,
Mhm.
and essentially plays a big part in my healing process. Like, I needed to be here to heal.
Go back. When did you return?
I came back here in 2018,
Oh,
and I
okay.
opened up my office like maybe towards the end of 2017.
So
Yeah.
you were still gone for quite a, I mean, that's almost
15.
20. Oh,
Yeah, I was gone for a long
15 years.
time.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
do you still go to the turkey tussle now that you're back home?
That's funny. So my daughter ended up going to PHS high school. So I did go to Turkey Tussle to support her when she was in high school that
Mhm.
one time. But you know what? It was not the same, honey. It was not like it was back in our day. Absolutely not. I was like, this is not what I remember Turkey Tussle
Mhm.
being. But I have been back once. That was it. But I don't plan on attending anymore.
Yeah.
Not
I've
unless
been
I
in
can.
the I've been in the general area. I know the racial demographics of Altadena, Pasadena has definitely changed. I mean,
Yeah.
it's obviously the amount of African Americans has significantly decreased.
Yes.
And so one time I was riding by Mirror and I was just like, where are the black people at? Like
Yeah.
where are all the black people? And so I can imagine, I'm sure it doesn't feel the same.
It's not the same at all. And the sad thing about what we know Pasadena to be, is yeah, a lot of us have relocated, costs played a big factor in that. And we don't have as many families in the city anymore because it's unaffordable for families. So a lot of the schools, like Wilson's shut down. The middle school I went to is no longer there.
Right.
So a lot
Mm-hmm.
of the high school and middle school, even not really high school, but I was elementary, middle schools, have closed down because there's not a lot of families in the city anymore because of the cost of living.
I know that Pasadena just passed what is that called rental
Rental, good Lord, why did it just escape my
you know what it
brain?
is. It's something to do when they can't
Go up on
increase.
the rents. Yes.
It's a
That was
rent.
a big push in the city. So I am very much
I know.
involved in local politics here. And
They raised a lot of
affordability,
money for that. They raised a lot of money to do it.
it took them a couple of years. This was like a 4-year process.
Mm-hmm.
There was a lot of blood, sweat, and tears that went into getting that law implemented because they tried to do it 2 years ago and it didn't pass.
Mm-hmm.
So they came back 2 more years and it finally passed. And I think that's really important for affordability. This is a beautiful city and it's a beautiful place to raise your kids, to be honest.
It is.
And
It is. Mm-hmm.
it's sad that most families, especially young families, can't plant roots here because it's just unaffordable. And the majority of the people living in this city are renters. You can't even purchase a home here because it's not even reachable, even with a two-parent income.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So I thought it was a really big deal that they got the rent control. That's what it was, rent control
Rent
established.
control. That's what it is. Rent control. I've heard that a million times. I'm like,
I know.
I could not think of what it was called. Rent control.
Yes, rent control. I think it's important, but not just in Pasadena.
Nationwide.
Nationwide, like housing is now becoming a crisis in our country because most people cannot afford basic necessities like a roof over your head, which is really sad. I mean,
it is.
And that really impacts people cost of living, right? And also your overall well-being and your quality of life. If you're working 2 and 3 and 4 jobs and you still can't sustain a roof over your head, you wonder why people are here doing crazy things. I mean, yeah, it's scary. And it's not, I know we feel it here. We're talking about Pasadena, but California, but like you said, it's everywhere. And unfortunately,
it is. It's everywhere.
Made 52,000 phone calls, sent 185,000 text messages, and raised $361,000. Wow. And we won by a 7.6% margin. So there's no chance that anybody could say that it was we barely did it. The Pasadena community changed the city charter to permanently codify strong tenant protections, rent control, eviction protections, a rental board, and a rental registry. So many times we've been asked, how many units will be affected by rent control? And we always say, we don't know. Nobody knows. Well, we're going to have a rental registry. We're going to know how many units. We defied the massively wealthy landlord lobby and the realtors who outspent us, but who have no real connection to this city other than taking money from the working class and putting it in their own pockets, literally enriching the already wealthy on the backs of the poor. And we defied 20 plus years of stubborn refusal of the political class to listen to the residents, the voters. We stood up to Mayor Gordo and 6 out of 7 city council members, present company excluded, and ourselves created the solutions to the problems that we face. Politicians are not now and never will be the answer to our urgent needs, including the need for housing security and affordable housing. They are at best allies in the struggle. We are the answer, and we prove that together. El pueblo unido jamás será vencido. El pueblo unido jamás será vencido. If you are a tenant or an ally of tenants, please join the Pasadena Tenants Union. It only costs $1 or $5 a month if you want to pay dues. You don't even have to pay dues. So if you're a tenant or even an ally of tenants, please join us because the work continues. This victory is just one more step towards our ultimate goal of breaking the power of private property and finally removing all housing from the speculative market. Thank you so much.
I had 2 siblings who were homeless. I have 6 siblings. I have 2 half sisters, one I've never met. And I have two siblings who are deceased, my only brother and my older sister. But my older brother, Milton, he was homeless for 2 decades. He had some mental health issues. He was homeless for 2 decades. He died, out there while he was homeless. And I had a sister who was homeless. She was probably homeless like off and on for a few years. She died in a fire while she was out there, homeless. And I've actually I've been homeless you know, at different points or whatever. Not, you know, like homeless on the
On the
streets,
street,
but
yeah, but yeah,
but I spent some time in a homeless shelter at one point, you know, and
yeah.
to me, it's not, I mean, you know, I'm not embarrassed about it or anything. I mean, I'll take any kind of help if I need it, you know, to sustain my life and to get me to where I need to go to and stuff. But like to see how things have progressed now, it's just like
Scary.
it is scary. And the thing is, homeless, you know, some people, it can just, you know, it can happen gradually and then it can just happen the next day.
Overnight, yep.
You know, and you know, people have health issues, you can't afford this, you can't afford that, mental health. There's so many factors that factor into a person, you know, becoming homeless. And some people, you know, of course, probably would never see themselves homeless or can't, you know, just be like, nah, I can't see myself, you know.
Yeah.
It can happen to anybody.
We're all 2.5 seconds away from being homeless. The way that this world is going, you know, and with my organization, you know, I work a lot with this population of people. So that's why I'm really well versed in understanding and knowing what's going on, because I sit around the tables a lot of these conversations and come up with ways that we can help to solve them. And it's funny because I was just in a big meeting yesterday. That was the topic that I approached the city about, was housing, because here at Shepherd's Door, although we work with domestic violence, we are now getting influx of people needing to be housed because of the lack of shelter availability. And we were never really created to be a housing agency per se. However, we're finding ourselves having to house families, and therefore it kind of pushed me into this realm. And, you know, I had to go and advocate for an organization to make sure we get the resources that we need so we could properly help the people who are coming to our doors. But at the end of the day, it's a human issue. And until we look at it that way, I don't think we're going to solve it. You know what I mean? It's not, oh, that's her problem, or that's his problem, or that's their family's issue.
It's all of our problems.
All of our problems. And it has to be all hands on deck to solve them, because there's layers of issues that allow people to find themselves in those situations. Until we actually address those issues, then we will not be able to end it. You know, I have clients that I've housed and they were chronically homeless before finding me. And I realized that, okay, I can't just put them in a house, right? Because they're not going to succeed that way. We need to address the issues that led them down the path that led them to being homeless. And a lot of those issues do start psychologically. Then you work your way through, and then you deal with the financial aspect, right? And then there's a lot of financial literacy and budgeting and learning how to run a household. There's so many parts to making sure a person is housed, is successfully housed, and then stay housed. And that's one of the things I'm very proud of, because we have kind of figured that formula out. And 98% of the people in our organization that we have housed remain housed. But that goes along with a lot of additional support. Like we don't just help you and walk away. Like, there's so many people that I'm a sister to, a mama to, you know what I mean? Like, you got me for life. If I'm help you, you got me, you know, and that needs to be reciprocated. It works, you know, both ways.
You know, so at one point, my brother had received Section 8 housing, and I think he probably had housing for maybe a year, and maybe even less than a year. And he went right back to what he was comfortable and used to. And, you know, before he died, well, after he died, all I could think of was, you know, the last time I talked to him was in 2017 on the phone. And I was trying to ask him some questions about our father, what memories he would have remembered about our father, because we never talked about his memories, you know, and I only had like 2 memories. So I was disappointed that I never got to ask him that. And I guess, well, you said when you were younger, you said you didn't appreciate Pasadena, right?
No.
So what do you enjoy about Pasadena the most now?
It's clean. It's cleaner than LA.
Oh, well, yeah.
Sure.
Definitely.
Yeah. The family vibe that you get here versus like in the city.
You did say it's a great place to raise children.
Yeah, it's a good place to raise kids. It's smaller, right? So you kind of know more people, I would say, versus like a bigger city. Yeah. And then I'm not gonna lie, the traffic, honey, because Lord, the traffic in LA the traffic be killing you.
I hear about that. I hear.
Yes.
And none in Pasadena?
No, with Pasadena, I mean, when you compare, right? I mean, Pasadena has its things, but when in comparison to LA, I lived in South LA, the heart of LA. off of Crenshaw. Like I was in the thick of it, boo. And
Crenshaw on what?
Crenshaw and 48.
Oh,
So I
you
would
were
live
right
like
in
in
the
a
hood.
park. Yeah. So you know how LA have pockets, right? So my pocket was good. Like I had a nice street, house. I was good. But then you whoop, go around the corner and it could be something different. That's kind of how LA works. But
I'm
I feel like
surprised we never. I'm surprised we never crossed paths because I lived in West Hollywood, Hollywood. I've been
Mhm.
gone from California for a decade. I mean, I've went
Yeah.
back and forth and I've been back and forth, but I'm surprised we never ran into each other because I used to frequent Crenshaw. I got some Crenshaw stories.
Exactly, right? Like, ooh, it was fun back then. I don't know how it is now, honey, but
I
it was fun.
know. Yeah, I don't know. Right. Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I don't. Yeah, it's a
I
different world.
actually loved it when I was there. And you know what? And then I loved it because it was a lot of us, right? It was really our people. And
Mhm.
when my kids went to school, they had a Black principal, a Black teacher. You know what I mean? And I was a single mom. So I had like a community of people at the school who helped me raise my kids. I love that part. And the thing about, how we are as Black people, right? Your kid act up in the store and you like, sit down. You could do that without worrying about somebody gonna call the people on you. It's like, didn't I tell you? It's okay with
Mhm.
us, but you go when I'm out here, it's different. My kids act up, it's like, you better, like you got to speak under your breath because
Mhm.
not everybody
But if they
understands.
bite your tongue.
Yeah, it's like, you know better,
Yeah.
So I enjoyed that part. Like I'm happy.
It was more of a sense of community.
It was. You went to the store, your people were working. Yeah, so I love that part about Los
And
Angeles.
and I know LA, the demographics out there too. Not just Pasadena, actually
No,
all of Southern California.
it is. We're leaving. I can say
Yeah.
that.
Well,
We're
they say
leaving.
they call it the reverse migration.
Oh, that's what they're calling it. Okay.
Mhm. The reverse
But
the
where are we
reverse
going?
migration. Hmm?
Where are we going? I haven't figured that out. Are we going back down south? Where are we going?
Arizona, Texas,
Yeah.
South. And some folks are going up to Oregon and Washington. Some people are
Oh,
going
really?
north. Yeah.
Oh,
Hmm.
interesting. Okay.
I actually have a cousin who's in Denver, Colorado,
Mm-hmm.
and someone else. Matter of fact, he graduated from Muir. He's older than us. I'm gonna have to tell him about this. Hey Isaac Nino. He's in Denver, Colorado. So I know two people in Denver, Colorado. Back to Pasadena. When did you see your first Rose Parade?
I'm not gonna lie. When I saw my first Rose Parade was when I was in the Rose Parade in 2019. Congresswoman Judy Chu
Tunisia.
asked me to represent her.
Tunisia.
Yes, in the Rose
Tunisia.
Parade. So I walked the Rose Parade.
You had never watched the
No,
Rose. You had never even went down there on New Year's Eve to like.
no,
You were never. Are you serious?
no, I never did. Well, so I came from a very strict Christian family, right? So we didn't do secular things, so to speak. So for New Year's, we was in church, honey. You know what I mean? Like, so I didn't really get that part. I mean, I heard about the Rose Parade, but it was not something that really piqued my interest
I got
because
you.
it's kind of not what we did.
It's
And
considered
then
worldly.
exactly. And then we left. Then I left shortly after becoming an adult. I was out of here. I was in LA. So there was like no part of the Rose Parade that I was even interested in.
So I
So
used to, I used to, I used to, what's that word called? I used to volunteer and, put flowers on the floats. And
yeah.
because, okay, so we lived in Altadena. And so we would go shopping over there at Ralph's and La Cañada. We would go
Yeah.
shopping at the Ralph's in Altadena too, but we would go over there sometimes in La Cañada. And, going over there and you're getting off the freeway and getting back on the freeway, there was an area where they would house one of the floats. And I think like towards the fall, you could start seeing where they were kind of like, you could see the skeleton of it, but then
Yeah.
closer towards the season where you can see them working on it in the big tent and stuff. So I would always see La Cañada's float because it was housed under the
Nice.
freeway.
Oh,
But then I used to go out there on New Year's Eve with some friends and stuff, and I knew some females who had tried out to be on the float. So
yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
know why I was I was expecting for you to be like, yeah, I was
No.
watching no.
That was never really my thing. It's still not as really, I mean, I'd say, but I mean, no, I'm not going to camp out. I'm not going to do any of that. I did take my kids, the little ones, to go and see the floats for the first time, like before COVID, when I actually walked in the parade.
You
I took
did.
them, afterwards they have the little, you can go walk by and see all the different floats and stuff like that. So my kids did go and they got to see mommy be in the parade. But
Mhm.
child, that was first and probably the last time I don't know. I went to the Rose Parade.
I'm
That's
sure
not my thing.
I don't remember the last time. It's probably been over 20 years probably since I've been to the Rose Parade. I jumped on one of the floats one time.
Oh,
That was in 2000, so that's how long ago that was. But like going out there sitting and watching and stuff, I couldn't remember. I became a teenage mother. You became a teenage mother at age 16.
yes, I did.
And you were the mother of two.
By the age of 18, yes.
By the age of 18. So
Yeah.
I only attended Mir for 1 year, and that was in 1996.
Mm-hmm.
And that is when I met you.
Mm-hmm.
I had no idea that you were a mom. I can't remember knowing that. Were your children in that program for mothers? Were they at school with you sometimes?
So I had one child. So when we met, I got pregnant in the 11th grade.
Mhm.
And then I had my son right before school started. He didn't go to the school. So my son did not attend school with me. And by my senior year, I wasn't at school full time. I had already did all my credits. So I was maybe there 2-3 hours out of a day, and then I was gone.
Okay.
Yeah. So like my son was never with me, but for the homecoming, I don't know if you remember, but they had to read your bio. In my bio, I said I was a mom, and that was actually a big thing because everybody was surprised that I got voted to be on the homecoming court
Being a mom.
as a mom, because like as a teenage pregnancy, because it's never happened. And there was they were protesting, like a lot of the girls were mad and wanted to fight me. The principal was like, you can't walk home or, to be picked up because they didn't feel that I was worthy enough.
Are you serious?
It was like a big deal, but you know what?
I don't think you told me.
Yeah, it was like it was a newspaper article written and everything. Yeah, it was like
the shade.
That much shade.
They were, and I know the girls too. And and it's crazy because no one knew how I got pregnant, right? So people, when you get pregnant as a teenager, they assume.
But I wasn't the baby's daddy.
No, you was not the baby's daddy. But the baby's daddy did go to Mir, and he was very popular. He graduated the year before us.
Okay, so I wouldn't have known.
Well, you probably wouldn't know who he is, but oh no, you wasn't there. You came. Okay, so you wouldn't have known. No. But he graduated the year before. But people assume, oh, she's a hoe, she sleeps around. And I was always a very quiet one. So I was not, because remember, I come from a very strict Christian family. So I was not quote unquote worldly. I was very homely, I would say, looking back on myself then. But I was easily tricked because I was so naive, right? By a boy who was much more advanced than I was.
Yeah.
And put me in a compromising position, and therefore I ended up pregnant with my son. And I chose to have
this, and your oldest. This is your oldest.
Yeah, my oldest and my only son, yes.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't something that I planned to do. I was actually a virgin when that experience happened. And I had my child. So for people to judge you, and I remember the principal that time. Oh, I remember the principal. And it's crazy how
what Eddie Newman, right? Or
Eddie Newman. Yes.
Well, no, Mr. Cash was the vice principal, right?
I loved him. Yes. But Eddie Newman was the principal, and then Miss, oh God, well, I can't remember her name, and I still talk to her all the time. At the front desk, what was her name? Oh, she would kill me right now. Hope she never sees this podcast because I can't remember her name.
What did she do?
The lady who worked in the front office, the black lady. Oh my God. Oh my God. And I talked to her. A lot
of black ladies.
I know.
Like you're talking about when you first get to the school and you deal with those people?
Yeah. It'll come to me though. I can't remember her name right now. Ooh, I'll go back.
She was
supportive.
But
anyway. She was supportive. Yeah, but the principal was not. And I remember I brought my son to when we have the what do you call that when pep rally? That's what pep rally. Brought my son. You know how we sit on the hill, and I had my son with me. We're sitting on the hill, and she walked by and she gave me this snarky look and like looked down on me and was like, you need to give that child needs to be with his mother. And I was like, I'm his mother. And then the look she gave me was like, it was such a look like I'm looking down on her. And I remember how bad that made me feel because I'm thinking like, you don't even know me. And I can see how you're judging me, but you don't know my story. And you don't know how I got to this point, And I remember leaving and I felt very sad, and that stuck with me for my whole entire life because of the judgment but it's like, so I just remembered that. But yeah, I had my son, and people couldn't believe like I got voted to be on the homecoming court, and I got voted. I have more votes, mostly from the boys, and then the staff. And I always said that I have more integrity in class with the baby than the majority of the young women who were trying to try out with no baby. So in my eyes, I was very worthy. And I was kind of proud of myself that I kind of broke that barrier, and I did that, and I didn't hide behind it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So
The shade, the shade of it all.
possibility that I met your son at one point, maybe.
100%. Yeah.
Probably so. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Well, I remember how we met. Do you want to talk about how we met?
I don't remember how we met, but I remember why I picked you to be my homecoming date.
Uh-huh.
I knew you. So you tell me how we officially met.
I remember. I think around that time I was nominated to be a big man on campus, something like that. It was I was your escort for the winter ball, and that was during the fall. That was during like the winter ball was around December, November. No, Thanksgiving, turkey tussle.
Yeah, for homecoming. Yes.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So turkey tussle time. I just remember putting up a note or something, or telling some of the girls that I wanted to go. I think I was just letting people know that I was available, that I wanted to go, that I wanted to be an escort. That's how.
Yeah. Okay. So I know that I was talking to my friends and I was trying to figure out who I wanted to go with. And because I had a baby, all the guys assumed that I was putting out. You know how guys can be like, right? Oh, they want to date you all of a sudden. Oh, she having sex. I want to date her. And I don't want to be with no guy because that's not really what I had going on. And I was like, who can I pick that's fine, right? Like, because you want to look good in your pictures. That's
you do. Yeah, those pictures are.
Right? And then I was like, but who's respectful? That's just what I kept thinking. Who will respect my boundaries? Who will be respectful? And then your name came up and I was like, bam, he's perfect. We'll look cute together. I feel safe with him. He's respectable because I never heard anything cheesy or crazy about you. Like, I heard about a lot of other guys. You never gave me those creepy vibes that you would violate my space in any kind of way. So yeah, that's how you became my homecoming date.
Wow. I remember I was actually late to the turkey tussle. I was caught up in Hollywood, whatever, but I remember I was late. Do you remember?
Yeah. I don't remember that part, no.
I remember I was late. You guys were already
for the assembly? When we walked down? Or
this was for actually like at the turkey tussle.
Oh, we had to walk the field.
We had to walk the field, and I know I was late. I don't know how late, but I know I was late. I mean, I got there for the pictures and stuff, but I just know that I was late. I don't remember where the winter ball, like, where was the ball at?
I don't even remember it.
Wait, no, you know what? Okay, because we have the winter ball. Okay, so then you know what? I remember we were the after party, the party was in Monrovia. No, I'm sorry, it wasn't in Monrovia. It was over in Burbank or Glendale, and it was at a brown building, and it was kind of up a hill, and you could like see the city.
It was at Castaways.
What's that called?
Burbank. Castaways in Burbank.
Is it a brown building, like wooden logs?
It has to be Castaways.
Has to be. That's it then. Yeah.
Yeah.
Was it always there for a long time?
Yeah, Castaways been there forever. I mean, it doesn't look the same anymore, but it's still in the same space. Yeah.
Okay, then I think that's I just have
it has to be.
I would like to think that I have a good memory. I just have some thoughts about that. So,
yes.
Yeah.
And I was said that, and like it's crazy because when I moved back here and I got in therapy and started really dealing with a lot of my trauma, it took me back to high school. You know what I mean? And I realized like that was like it was a big part of kind of what kind of led me down the path that I took as an adult. And that's when I remembered all these things. And I remembered you because I was like, wow, I wonder if I'll ever see him again and I'll be able to say thank you. Like, thank you for helping to make that experience for me a good one, because people don't really know what someone's going through, right? You see them and you think right, but you really have no idea. And once you've been violated and you don't feel safe, when you actually appreciate people. who give you a sense of safety and comfort. And then also someone who doesn't treat you or make you feel, bad or misjudge you. And so you were that person for me. And I was like, I'll probably never see him again to say thank you. Because I know you had no idea that you were really that important for me.
I had no idea at all. And so when I invited you on the show, you had told me, you had mentioned something to me, and I'm going to read a quote. And you had said, "I'm excited to come on your show and educate and entertain your supporters. You don't know this, but I chose you as my homecoming date, not just because you were fine, but because I was date raped in high school. It left me traumatized. I didn't trust men. I trusted you. I never knew if I would ever have a chance to say that to you because I never knew if I'd see you again. Thank you for being a person. Thank you for being a person I could trust and feel safe with. Also, thank you for remembering me and reconnecting again. You mean more to me than you know."
No, that's fine. That's exactly what I said. I meant that. Yeah. You can leave that in.
What was the best memory, would you say, you had of John Muir? Was it that year, your senior year?
Yeah, it definitely was. I would say the homecoming for me was like really the highlight. Not because I made the homecoming court, but to me, what it signified. When you've had those experiences being a teenage mom and how I became a teenage mom and the judgment that came from that, you're not judged correctly. And the fact that I was able to still be on the homecoming court, and that many people actually feel that I was worthy, and that's the word I'm going to use, worthy, because I did struggle with self-worth after having that experience. It's something that helps me constantly remember that I'm worthy and that I'm good enough despite what I've experienced. So that was definitely the highlight of my whole entire high school experience, I would say.
That actually validated you as a person and would, to so many degrees, boosted your confidence again.
Yeah, 100%. And it's something that I was able to always fall back on in life when you have moments where you feel like you're not good enough. That moment in life taught me that I'm not just what I've been through. You know what I mean? I'm bigger than what I've been through, and not to feel ashamed of what I went through. And for years, I never spoke about it publicly, to be honest. And for years, I did something the therapist says, like, you block it out, right? Like I had a out of body experience where I disconnected myself from the experience for years. But I didn't realize that I carried it with me. And that's where the heaviness and the depression and the constant sadness that I faced throughout my life, that's where it came from. But I wasn't able to connect the two together because I made myself forget it. Does that make sense? And now that I'm able to put it all back together, put it in proper perspective, I do realize that those moments in my life were the very moments that helped to solidify the Tunisia that everybody sees now. And the same people who look down on me, I've had the opportunity to be in the same rooms with them and be in the rooms with them as this version of me, right? The Tunisia that's respected politically, the Tunisia that's respected on the television, the Tunisia that's respected when you stand up and you do public speakings and things of that nature, and now almost looked up as an equal or even quote unquote better than some of the same people who looked down on me. And so all the moments in my life mean something to me, but sometimes when you're going through it, you don't see it that way, but when you have the opportunity to heal, and that's why I'm a big preacher of healing, you could kind of put things in its proper perspective and realize that all of that needed to happen to make you become the person that you were actually destined to become. Does that kind of make sense?
It does. And the way this is, so when you shared that with me, I don't cry that often or whatever. I actually started crying because I had no idea, and I wouldn't have never, I was just a teenage boy, obviously I know what, rape is. And, I'd heard about like date rape, but not too sure. Like, I'm gonna be honest with you. When I was like 11, 12 or 13, I remember my idea of somebody being raped, and I know this sounds like crazy. My idea of somebody being raped was somebody taking a rake, an actual rake, and taking that and raking that, like doing something to them with that.
Yes.
I was a kid. I couldn't. Yes. That's how my brain. How do I say it? Like.
Yeah, that's what you thought it. That's how you perceived it to be.
That's how I contextualized what that must be. because
Yeah.
it just sound, rape, I definitely wasn't expecting to hear that. And knowing, looking back, I mean, people are able to hide, I mean, people, don't always disclose certain things for good reason. People don't want to be further humiliated or, further traumatized, because
Yeah. Yeah.
I've shared things with people, and they, people have their ways of hurting you without putting their hands on you,
Very much
or
so.
so sometimes it's not in your best interest to share certain things or whatever, even though the discussing it can help with the healing process, or just acknowledging it. It needs to
Yeah.
be acknowledged.
Yeah.
Certain things that happen to people when they're violated, it needs
Yeah.
to be acknowledged, and it needs to be acknowledged, especially when a person doesn't receive any kind of justice in the courts.
100%.
So again, when you told me, I was just really surprised, but I was happy that I had reached out to you to invite you on the show, because you shared that with me, and I wouldn't have never known that I was there for you in your life at a time when you were going through something that heavy. And I was able to help you unknowingly. I had
Yeah.
no
Because
idea. Mhm.
if you would have said yes, I don't know how I don't know, I probably would have been the first homecoming date to not have a date. I mean, like, it was that serious for me. Like, I did
But hold
not
on. Okay, so like, you went there for 4 years, Tamir? That was your
yeah.
fourth year?
Hmm.
You didn't know there were no other boys or guys that you liked, or not liked, but like felt comfortable with, or nice guys?
Not after having that experience, no.
Oh, well,
My
you're
trust for men
right. Yeah.
is like a zero. Even to this day, I struggle with that a lot. Even as an adult dating, right? Like, I have so many walls up. Like, there's guys that's been in my life for years that don't know where I live still. Everybody knows where my office is. This is like, public information, but I have so many barriers up, because once someone has violated you like that, and the thing about date rape is that is date rape because you're actually with someone whom you trust. When you go
Yes.
out with someone
Mm-hmm.
and you go out on a date with someone, there's some form of trust that's kind of there, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you're in a vulnerable situation, it's easy to be taken advantage of. But
Mm-hmm.
those are often the cases that are hardest to prosecute, right? Because you have to prove that you didn't want it. Well, how can you prove it was just you and him?
Mm-hmm.
Is your word against their word, So that's
Yeah.
a lot of that's the reason why most people who have these experiences don't come forward, and then also the perpetrators don't get brought to justice, because it's a very, very hard thing to prove. And I talk about it a lot now that I
Mm-hmm.
have processed it and I have really dealt with it, and it's still hard for me. I'm not gonna lie, like, I have hard moments more than people know. That's why I understand the importance of, like, not just taking for granted that everybody's okay.
Yeah.
Because you have triggering moments, right? Things trigger you. And because we talk about it so much now in society, which I'm happy these
Mm-hmm.
conversations are being had more, but
Mm-hmm.
having the conversations, when I hear other young girls talk about it, it's like I feel it all over again. There's something that would never, never leave you. And it's something that would change your life forever. And when someone takes away your ability to have control over your body,
Mm-hmm.
um, it's a very unfair thing.
Yeah.
And it's something that you'll never be able to get back. And then I believe that you psychologically want to be in control of everything after that.
Oh, yes, yes. And so let me ask you this question. Um, After that happened to you, would you would you say, after that happened to you, did you start to realize, well, did you start to have issues with depression when you were like right afterward? Yeah.
Immediately. Yeah. And, I didn't I didn't know it to be depression back then, because again, we came from a very religious family. So everything was, you go to church and you pray and you give it to the Lord, right? So that whole mental health conversation was never, ever, never, never had, especially back then compared to now. So
Mhm.
it was never a conversation. Let's get Tanisha in therapy, and
It's not
Tanisha, you need to go to
acknowledged.
therapy. No, no.
No.
And it also was never said that that shouldn't have happened to you. It was like,
Mhm.
okay, let's clean this up and let's just polish it off, and you get back out there, and we're never going to speak of this, and that's it.
Mhm.
And I was angry about it for years, because I felt that no one cared. But now I look back on it, I don't believe that at all. I believe that my family knew that there was not much they were going to be able to do
Yeah.
about it. And I feel like they felt it was better to keep it quiet than to put me through the additional trauma of trying to prove that this has happened in seeking justice. Because to be honest, now that I understand the legal system the way that I do,
Mhm.
I wouldn't have been able to prove that. It was going to be my word against his, and that would have even been even more traumatic. You know what I mean? So it's
Yeah.
just something that victims have to just, unfortunately, we just have to live with, and we got to fix that part of our system.
Yeah. Not too long after a year later after school, I was assaulted by somebody. This person was a stranger, and it involved some handcuffs and a gun. And the person had set me up. And to make a long story short, it was the 4th of July of 1997. Had met them around Leimert Park, and then we went to Hawthorne. I was on my way to my boyfriend's house. He's a pastor now. He was a pastor at Double Rock. His pastor, Eugene Joshua Sims. He was a pastor at Double Rock. Double Rock is closed now. He had stole like $800,000 from the church. So
Wow.
yeah, I know. Didn't share any of it with me. So we
Okay,
weren't we weren't dating at that point, but I'm not mad at him. So I was on my way to his house, and it was the 4th of July of 1997. I had met this guy, and he gave him a ride, and we went to Hawthorne and went to an apartment. Anyway, he went into the house, got some weed, and we went to a park, and it was just what some things happened, some things were said, and everything, the energy just shifted. To make a long story short, we both ended up at the hospital, Robert Kennedy Hospital. We both ended up at the hospital with gunshots. And the police told me that they wanted me to identify, somebody and I was, high from the weed, that we were smoking in the car, and, was still tripping that, bullets was flying over my head in my car, and I'm at the hospital with a handcuff on, his handcuff. He had tried to handcuff me until I fought him, and, fought him off with his own gun. And so, I testified, it was him, and I testified. And this is 25 years ago. So I testified, he was found not guilty. I remember he didn't take the stand. I was just confused as to why he was found not guilty. I couldn't understand, they had, the handcuffs, they had his gun. Well, they had the gun. I didn't find out until about a decade ago. They found, I knew they had a gun, but the gun was found, I think, later on that day by a 4-year-old. And I think it was like somebody in the park, an adult male who was a witness. He was, I think his name is, I want to say Theron Bigelow. He lives in Alaska now. He was a witness, and he took the gun from the little boy. It was in a wool cap or whatever. So before the police had found him in the park, he had discarded the gun. But they had the gun, they had the handcuffs, his fingerprints were on my car window, and he was found not guilty.
Wow, see?
And, what I went through in the car was, that was obviously horrible, a life-changing, traumatic event. Happy that I made it out alive, and, with my limbs, because at one point I was being told my arm was going to have to be amputated, and I was taken from Robert F. Kennedy Hospital to Martin Luther King Hospital, and it was just horrible. It was just a nightmare. So to experience that, there were times as I got a little older, I was like, damn, like, what was the purpose of me testifying? I remember them asking me why I was angry. The judge asking me why I was angry, and, like, why wouldn't I be angry? This is somebody, that I want dead now,
Yeah.
So, although I wasn't raped, but there's different ways that, people can be violated. And so in that manner that I was violated, I just couldn't understand why, he wasn't found guilty. And in my point of view, and in my shoes, I just felt like, with my testimony, everything, but, now I can understand why he wasn't found guilty. You know, there are two sides to one story. You know, I don't know the story, you know, that he told. As a witness, you're only allowed to go and tell your testimony. You're not allowed to sit through the proceedings, you know, so you don't know. And how do I say it? It's not to say that you're used, but it's like after you play your part, you're just dismissed. Like, you know, you don't have, that's it. Like they're done with you, you know? So when I can understand, you know, you saying how, you know, you felt at that time it was better for you not to, for some people, it is even more traumatizing to have to testify and to go through all of that. And then sometimes, no, you don't receive, quote unquote, the justice that you're looking for.
And it's crazy. I was having a conversation with my 18-year-old last night because she was speaking of someone who just went through a date rape situation, and it was sharing this young girl's experience, and that she seems to be in a lot of emotional disarray because of it. And even that was triggering last night. But I'm talking to my daughter and I'm like, you know, as she's now turning into a young woman, and I know we have to release her, and she's going to be out in this world, and she's going to be going on dates, and she's going to be meeting people. And I told her, I said, you know, most rapes don't happen just walking down the street and you just assaulted by a stranger. Those do happen, but that's not the majority of the rapes that happen. The majority of the rapes that happen are with people that you feel safe with, because you're vulnerable. You let your guards down. So you will be in a room or a house with them. You will be in a car with them alone, right? And with no one else being around. And that's a perfect opportunity for anyone who's a predator. And so I really try and explain that to as much as I can. And it's the scariest thing when you have that experience and then you have kids, because you know, you do not want your kids to have any of the experiences that you have, you know, but then you know that you can't protect them because this is the way that the world is. And then you have to explain to them that, God forbid, this is your experience. The law is not going to protect you either, you know, and it's a very, very sad place to be as a parent. And then it's a sad place to be just overall as a human in this society. I mean, we have to do more with protecting victims. Our whole legal system it was built to respond, not to prevent. And that's the problem, right? So we have no measures in place for none of these types of crimes, especially sexual assault crimes, and also domestic violence crimes to prevent. It only responds to. And then the way that those laws are written, they were never written to actually protect victims of any type of an assault. Because if it was, then a lot of the factors that they put into play would not be factors. Like, you know, the whole proving your word against theirs. You, like you say, you had enough evidence to prove that there was a struggle when something happened and this person had a weapon. I mean, that alone was enough to prove that that was a situation that was set up almost with intent, I would say, you know, because
very much so.
Walks around with handcuffs and a gun. I mean, no, who does that? And just like for me,
I didn't bring him to the party.
Exactly. And like for me, I was told I was going to the movies, and somehow I ended up in the Meadows at a friend's house who I didn't know the parents wasn't home, you know, and back then we didn't have cell phones, right? No. Where could I have gone? I would get out, run where? I mean, it was pitch black. I didn't even know where I was. You know, the Meadows don't even have streets, you know. And
I know the Meadows is and the Meadows is kind of spooky.
Very spooky.
Beautiful, but spooky.
Very, especially at nighttime, and especially when you don't know your way around it.
And I couldn't imagine, you know, because sometimes me and my siblings, we moved up there with my stepfather, who ended up being, well, I'll get into that a little later. So sometimes we will walk up, you know, Lincoln, we will walk home all the way up to the Meadows.
Oh, wow.
I couldn't imagine walking down that hill at night.
I know.
And there's coyotes and there's mountain, like, yeah.
Yeah. So I had two options. Either I was going to go along with this, or I was going to try and find my way out of either one. It wasn't going to work. I was definitely put in a position. I was trapped. Couldn't get out. There was nowhere to go. I just had to deal with it and then pray that I make it out and I can go home, you know, and that was the outcome of that. But again, it would have been my word against that person's word. And then later to find out the person whose house we was at, I've spoken to him. You know, we've kept in contact over the years. He had no idea that that's what happened in that room. Yeah.
And back then, they weren't doing date rape. There was no such thing as a date rape kit back then, was it?
No.
Well,
There
not
was no
date rape, but a rape kit.
Yeah, rape kit. No.
That's fairly new within like the past 2 decades, isn't it?
I would say so. Yes, for sure. For
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
So, it was just like, okay, there was really nothing you could do about it. And just feeling like, wow, this happened to me and no one cared, I feel was the worst feeling, to walk around and carry that more than the actual what happened, right? It was the fact that nobody cared enough about me to want to do anything to protect me.
And
so
did
then
you experienced a lot of anger?
Oh, very angry. Yes, honey, I was very angry. So that's why I was fitting that I lived in LA. She was ready to fight at a drop of a dime. I was a very angry parent, unfortunately. And it's crazy because my first two kids got angry mama version of me, right? I was a great mom, but I was always on edge and irritable. Yeah. I'm not gonna lie, I cry every day of my life. Like every day I would drop my kids off at school and then I would cry. Every day. Imagine doing that every day of your life. I don't cry as often, but every single day I had to cry and then pull myself together so when I pick them up, I can pretend like I'm okay. I've mastered how to pretend that I'm okay. I've mastered that. Yeah. And I'm trying to teach myself to be honest when I'm not okay. And teaching myself that it's okay for me to not be okay.
When you're not feeling well emotionally.
Yeah. And I think there's a lot of people that's like that in our world, so I've learned not to judge someone. And when I see someone, not to just assume that everything is wonderful for them because they can do this well. Because I'm great at doing this. I can do this very well. Right. Yeah. And I can show up very well. And you do not know what the hell is going on behind the scenes. I'm great at that, but I also realize I need to be great at really making sure I'm okay in the inside, and that's kind of what really started my passion for helping people, because I had to be honest that I was not okay. And I had to learn how to get to okay. And then I want to help other people get to okay. Yeah.
I received poetic justice because the individual, my whole thing was, when I was testifying too, I was thinking that, there was going to be some of his homies and, I thought there was going to be a courtroom full of his family. Like, I had to deal with that. I was intimidated with the thought of that. And my brother had went to court with me. Not one person was there. Nobody was there. And I was just like, where the people that, like him, love him, respect him? Where his friends, where's his homies at? So that right there told me they knew what kind of person he was. There was no girlfriend, nothing. And since July of 1997, Ricky LaVarn Marshall, prisoner 16111, has been a California prison inmate at various California prisons. After he was found not guilty for the 3 felonies against me, shooting into a car. So I forgot, but it was 3 or 4 felonies, just to let you know the extent of the seriousness of the situation. And that's another thing. I was like, how is a person not, convicted on one of these charges? They told me that I didn't have to worry because he had another felony court case. Since July of 1997, he's been in jail. After my court case, he was found not guilty, but he wasn't released because he had another felony trial. He's been in prison since 1997, but he was convicted for the sexual assault of a child under the age of 14. When they told me that, I was just like, I knew I never had to worry, about, running into him or seeing him, anywhere in LA, because it was just always this paranoia of something was going to happen to me because, if a person starts something like that, you figure, they're going to want to end it. Or now that they're, now that we, I testified, went through all that, like something must be, because I had a private investigator. I had moved to New York and became a, writer working on a memoir. And a lady, private investigator, she had gave me his, what they consider a rap sheet. It's like, she would have charged like somebody else like $5,000 for it. She didn't know me from anything. I explained to her my situation, my story, what I was doing. And I was trying to, just put some pieces together of who this person was. I had wrote him once when he was in prison in 2012. And I remember he wrote me back and it was just bullshit. So then I said, no, that was like 2007 or 2006. So 2013, I wrote him again. And I said, I'm going to write him and, talk a little differently, and it worked. It worked. He told me that he had a brother who had been shot and killed in a robbery, gone bad. He was disappointed he didn't even get to his brother's funeral. He told me that his family was, selling drugs, dealing drugs. Father wanted to kill his grandfather, or the grandfather wanted to kill the father, one or the other. He was a Mansfield Crip. And prior to meeting me, he was involved in a shooting. So, wasn't making this up, because I had the rap sheet, so I was able to see some of the charges or other things or whatever. But on that sheet, not a rap sheet, it's criminal history sheet. Yeah. There's a list of associates. Associates, I guess, they could be friends, definitely family members. And so I had that for like almost 9 years. And I, wasn't, contacting anybody. I didn't, but then I saw someone and I looked up their name and stuff, and, it ended up being his, because I was able to look through Ancestry and figure out his mother's maiden name and, all that. So I put together who one of the females was. It was his aunt. And I had reached out to her, and I think I texted her or called her, and, of course, she got defensive and stuff once I brought the name up and stuff, didn't want to talk. And I explained to her who I was and what the purpose of it was for. And she told me that those handcuffs that he used on me were the same handcuffs that he used on the 14-year-old child.
Oh, wow.
And when I was told that, I was just like, damn, like,
and the justice, they could have prevented that 14-year-old girl from having that experience had they done the right thing.
We don't know. Well, I don't know if was a girl or a boy.
Yeah.
And those records are sealed because it was a minor.
Yeah.
And on top of that, that happened prior to him meeting me.
Oh.
So when he met me, he was already a wanted felon. He was wanted for that case. So after he did what he did to me, that's why he was, he was found not guilty, but that's why they said, he still has another case that he has to face trial for, which was that case.
Wow.
Which was prior to my case. So they knew, they have, and actually he was going to he wouldn't have gotten the amount of time that he got. He got more time for that. So, I guess.
It worked. I mean, there was some justice. He's not
here.
No.
There was justice because his ass has been locked up in a cage for over 25 something years. And he's only been locked up in that cage because of me.
Yes.
What he did to me got him into that situation for him to face trial for what he did to that 14-year-old child.
Wow. That's crazy. Yes.
Very. So, it just, the way all of that played out. So it worked out fine.
I just want to say, like, my rapist and abuser, I never had a chance to confront him. I got pregnant. That's a whole nother story. But nonetheless, I just say, like, I feel like my vindication is the fact that his life has been shit his whole entire life. I heard, like, he had a mental spiral. He was, like, literally a transit at one point because he came from an affluent family, but his family just pretty much disowned him. Yeah, and he's had, like, a horrible, fucked up life his whole entire life. And I'm like, wow, karma is wonderful.
And that's the thing sometimes, like, and I guess, I hear a lot of stories, I pay attention to the news and stuff, but I'm always just like, wow, how do I say this? There's obviously a such thing as street justice, but karma, people do. I just say it like this. Some people are getting exactly what they deserve.
I agree.
In more ways than one, some folks are getting exactly what they deserve. And when the courts don't take care of them, when the legal system does not, when the legal system when it doesn't work in the favor of a victim, of someone who has obviously been victimized and is traumatized, when it doesn't work in their favor, the streets have their way of doing what the streets need to do.
Good old-fashioned karma comes in and say, I'll handle it from here. And I love that. I love that.
Yeah. So some people are, wow. Of course, when I asked to interview you, I did not think, once I started reading more about you and everything, I read about the domestic, violence. Did you have any secret, well, I guess, no, you wouldn't have had any secret crushes. You wouldn't have had any secret crushes then at that point, huh? No.
No, there was no secret crushes for me. No, a lot of people had a crush on me, but I didn't have one back.
Because you saw the question, so you've seen the questions. Thank you for watching Transbrations. You're watching part 1 of Tunisia Offray's interview for Women's History Month.